Jake Morrison looked out at the red sunrise over New Haven Colony. The morning air was crisp and clean, just like Earth air, but with a slightly sweet smell from the alien flowers that grew everywhere. He had been the colony leader for 5 years now, and he still loved watching the sun come up over their little piece of paradise. The colony had grown so much since the first ships arrived. What started as a small mining operation now housed over 50,000 people. Families had come from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies to build new lives here on Kepler 442b. Children played in the streets, laughing and running just like kids did back on Earth. The sound of their voices made Jake smile. Lisa Campbell walked up beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. She was the chief engineer, the person who kept all their machines running and their air clean. Without her, none of them would be alive on this distant world. "Beautiful morning," Lisa said, handing him the coffee. "Every morning is beautiful here," Jake replied. "Hard to believe we're so far from home." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the workers head to the mining facilities. The colony produced rare metals that Earth needed badly. But more than that, it was proof that humans could live anywhere, could make any world into home. Pete Rodriguez burst through the door behind them, his face pale with worry. He was their communications officer, the man who kept them connected to Earth and the other colonies. Something was very wrong. "Jake, you need to see this," Pete said, his voice shaking. "The long-range sensors are picking up something big. Really big." Jake followed Pete to the communications center. The room was full of screens and blinking lights. On the main display, Pete showed him what the sensors had found. Ships were coming toward their system. Lots of ships. How many? Jake asked. "Over 200 large vessels, maybe more." "They're still too far away to get exact numbers," Pete said. "But Jake, they're not human ships. The energy signatures are all wrong." Lisa leaned over to look at the data. "Could they be from one of the other alien species we trade with?" Pete shook his head. "No, I've seen the signatures from the traders and the Centauri. This is something else. Something we've never seen before." Jake felt his stomach drop. New Haven was far from Earth, far from help. They had some security forces, but they were meant to handle criminals and small problems, not alien invasion fleets. "How long until they get here?" Jake asked. 6 hours. "Maybe less," Pete said. "They're moving fast." Faster than any ships should be able to move, Jake thought quickly. He needed to warn Earth, but he also needed to protect his people. 50,000 lives depended on the decisions he made in the next few minutes. "Send a message to Earth immediately," he told Pete. "Tell them we have unknown alien ships coming. Lots of them. Ask for help." "Already tried," Pete said. "Something is blocking our signals. We can't get through." Amy Watson ran into the room. She was the head of colony security, a tough woman who had served in the military before coming to New Haven. Her face was grim. "Jake, we've got problems," she said. "The perimeter stations are reporting strange readings. The aliens aren't just sending ships. They're sending something else, too." "What kind of something else?" Jake asked. "Energy weapons. They're already firing at our outer settlements. The mining station at Black Rock just went dark." Jake felt the blood drain from his face. Black Rock had 300 people. Good people. Families. "Are there any survivors?" he asked. Amy shook her head. No response from anyone. "The whole station is just gone." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The aliens weren't here to talk or trade. They were here to destroy. "We need to evacuate," Lisa said. "Get everyone to the emergency shelters." "There's no time," Amy said. "And nowhere to run. Those ships will be here soon." Jake looked at his friends, his people. They were all looking at him for answers he didn't have. But he was their leader. He had to try something. Pete, keep trying to break through their jamming. Use everything we have. Emergency frequencies, quantum bursts, anything. Pete nodded and turned back to his equipment. His fingers flew over the controls, trying different methods to get a signal through. Outside, sirens began to wail. The colony's emergency system was activating automatically as the sensors detected the approaching threat. People would be running to the shelters, grabbing their children, wondering what was happening. Jake watched the main screen as the alien ships got closer. They were huge, bigger than any human ship he had ever seen. And they looked ... wrong. Not like metal ships at all, but like living things. Dark, twisted shapes that seemed to move and writhe even as they flew through space. "I've got something," Pete said suddenly. "The jamming has a weak spot. I can get a short burst through, but only for a few seconds." "Do it," Jake said. "Send everything. Our location, the size of the alien fleet, everything we know." Pete's hands moved quickly over the controls. On the screen, Jake could see the message being compressed and encoded. Everything they knew about the aliens, everything about their colony, packed into a single desperate cry for help. "Message sent," Pete said. "But I don't know if anyone will get it in time." Through the windows, Jake could see the alien ships now, dark shapes against the morning sky. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like deadly flowers blooming in space. And they were coming for his people. The first explosions began a few minutes later. The aliens were destroying everything human on the planet, one building at a time. Jake knew that New Haven was doomed. But maybe, just maybe, someone would hear their cry for help. Maybe someone would come. Admiral Richard Hayes stood in the deep underground command center beneath Luna Station. The room was carved from solid rock, built to survive even the worst attacks. Right now, it felt like a tomb. The holographic displays showed the terrible truth. New Haven was gone. 50,000 people, dead or worse. The message from Colony Administrator Jake Morrison had arrived just 3 hours ago. 3 hours since humanity learned they were not alone in the universe, and that they were facing an enemy that wanted them all dead. General Patricia Miller of the Colonial Marine Corps sat at the long table, her face hard as stone. She had fought in every major conflict for the past 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. Admiral Stephen Clark of the Deep Space Fleet looked tired, like he had aged 10 years in the past few hours. "Show them the recordings again," Admiral Hayes said to the technician. The main screen lit up with images from New Haven. The alien ships were massive, dark, and wrong. They looked like they were made of living tissue instead of metal. When they fired their weapons, streams of green energy tore through buildings like paper. The colony's defenses had lasted less than an hour. What do we know about them? General Miller asked. Captain Danny Foster stood up. He was their best tactical analyst, a man who had studied every battle humanity had ever fought. "We call them the Vorthic, based on some old alien records we bought from the traders. They're not just another hostile species. They're a plague." He touched a control, and the screen changed to show star maps. Red dots marked dead systems, places where life had once existed but didn't anymore. "They've been doing this for over 1,000 years, Annie continued. "They find a system with life, they destroy everything, and then they move on. They've killed entire civilizations, billions of people." Karen Stone, the intelligence director, opened a classified file. "We've been tracking them for months, but we thought they were still in the far sectors. We were wrong. They're here now, and New Haven was just the beginning." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The aliens weren't just attacking one colony. They were starting a war that would determine if humanity survived or died. How many ships do they have? Admiral Clark asked. Over 200 capital ships, Danny said. Maybe more. Each one is larger than our biggest dreadnought. They also have thousands of smaller vessels. Fighters, scouts, support ships. What? About their weapons? General Miller asked. Unknown technology. Their energy weapons seem to feed on whatever they hit, getting stronger as they fire. Their ships can repair themselves, and they don't seem to need supplies like we do. Admiral Hayes looked around the table at his people. These were the best military minds humanity had, and they all looked scared. He didn't blame them. The odds were terrible. What are our options? He asked. We could pull back, Admiral Clark said. Defend Earth and the inner colonies. Let them have the outer worlds. No, General Miller said firmly. We don't abandon our people, ever. Then we fight, Admiral Hayes said. But we need to be smart about it. We can't match their numbers. But we have advantages they don't know about. Karen Stone leaned forward. What advantages? Human stubbornness, Admiral Hayes said with a slight smile. They expect us to run or surrender. They don't know that humans never give up. Danny Foster pulled up tactical displays. If we're going to fight, we need every ship we can get. Every destroyer, every cruiser, every fighter. We mobilize everything. The War Fleet Authorization Act, Admiral Clark said. It's been sitting in the files for 50 years, waiting for something like this. Admiral Hayes nodded. I'll call the President. We need total mobilization. Every ship, every crew, every weapon we have. How long do we have? General Miller asked. Our scouts report Vorthix ships moving toward the Centauri colonies, Karen said. Maybe 2 weeks before they attack. Again. Then we have 2 weeks to build the largest military force in human history. Admiral Hayes said. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Messages went out to every human world, every space station, every ship in the fleet. The call was simple. Come home. Bring everything you have. Humanity was going to war. Admiral Hayes stood on the observation deck, watching the first ships arrive. The heavy cruiser UHS Boston came in first, her crew already at battle stations. Behind her came the destroyer UHS Phoenix, followed by ships from Mars, the Belt, and the outer colonies. General Miller joined him at the window. Think we can do it? She asked. We have to, Admiral Hayes said. Those people at New Haven died calling for help. We can't let their sacrifice be for nothing. More ships were arriving now. The massive dreadnought UHS Leviathan, pride of the Earth Fleet. The carrier USS Independence, loaded with fighters. Ships that had been patrolling the borders, protecting merchant vessels, exploring new worlds. All of them coming home for the biggest battle of their lives. I've never seen anything like it, General Miller said. The response has been incredible. Every ship that can fly is coming. That's what humans do, Admiral Hayes said. When someone threatens our family, we don't think about the odds. We think about protecting the people we love. A young officer approached them. Admiral, we're getting reports from the mining consortiums. They're sending their security ships too. And the Martian Navy is mobilizing their entire fleet. Admiral Hayes nodded. Good. We'll need them all. The officer hesitated. Sir, there's something else. The corporations are offering to convert their cargo ships to carry troops and supplies. They say they'll do it for free. For free? General Miller asked, surprised. Yes, ma'am. They said this isn't about money. It's about survival. Admiral Hayes felt something he hadn't felt in hours. Hope. Maybe they were outnumbered. Maybe the aliens had better weapons and stronger ships. But they had something the aliens didn't understand. The human spirit. Send out the final mobilization order, he told the officer. "Every ship, every crew, every weapon. We're going to show these aliens what happens when they mess with humanity." As the officer left, Admiral Hayes looked back out at the growing fleet. Ships were arriving from every direction, their crews ready to fight impossible odds. They were teachers and farmers, miners and merchants, all united by one simple truth. Nobody threatened their families and got away with it. The War Armada was being born, and it would be the most powerful force humanity had ever assembled. The aliens had made a mistake when they attacked New Haven. They had awakened something they didn't understand, the fury of a species that would never surrender, never give up, and never leave their own behind. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. Fleet Admiral Paul Wright stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, watching the greatest sight in human history unfold before him. Ships were arriving at Rally Point Sigma faster than anyone had thought possible. The asteroid belt around them was filled with vessels of every size and shape, all coming together for one purpose: war. Admiral Hayes had chosen Paul to command the War Armada, and the weight of that responsibility pressed down on him like a mountain. Every ship out there represented hundreds of lives, thousands of families back home who were counting on him to bring their loved ones back safely. "Admiral, the UHS Leviathan is requesting permission to take formation," called out Lieutenant Commander Nancy Cooper from the communications station. "Granted," Paul said. "Have her take position at Grid 77 Alpha." The Leviathan was a monster of a ship, over a kilometer long and armed with enough firepower to level a small moon. She was one of 12 dreadnoughts in the fleet, the backbone of human naval power. But even she looked small compared to what the scouts had reported about the Vorthik ships. Captain Roy Bennett's voice crackled over the comm system. "Admiral, Strike Group Delta is ready for inspection. We've got 47 ships ready to fight." Roy commanded a mixed group of converted cargo vessels and mining ships. They weren't built for war, but their crews had volunteered anyway. Paul had seen the manifest: teachers, farmers, mechanics, shopkeepers, people who had never fired a shot in anger, but who were willing to die for their species. "Excellent work, Captain Bennett," Paul replied. "Your people are heroes." Through the viewports, Paul could see the carrier groups forming up. The UHS Independence led a formation of 8 fleet carriers, each one loaded with fighters and bombers. The pilots were young, most of them barely out of training, but they flew with the skill of veterans. They knew what was at stake. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Stealth Squadron," reported the communications officer. "Put Captain Julie Hayes on screen," Paul ordered. Julie's face appeared on the main display. She looked tired, but her eyes burned with determination. She commanded the reconnaissance ships, the ghosts that slipped through enemy lines to gather intelligence. "Admiral, I'm sending you the latest reports from Vorthik Space," she said. "It's bad. They've completely destroyed the Tau Ceti system. 3 billion people gone." Paul felt his jaw tighten. 3 billion lives snuffed out like candles. The aliens weren't just conquering territory. They were committing genocide on a scale that was hard to imagine. What about their fleet strength? Paul asked. "Over 300 ships now, sir. They're gathering more vessels from somewhere. And Admiral, their ships are bigger than we thought. Some of them are over 2 kilometers long." Paul nodded grimly. The odds kept getting worse, but that didn't matter. They had to fight anyway. "Thank you, Captain Hayes. Keep watching them. We need to know when they move." Julie's image disappeared, and Paul turned back to the tactical displays. The War Armada was taking shape around him. Over 1,800 ships from every corner of human space. Dreadnoughts and destroyers, cruisers and corvettes, fighters and bombers. Even civilian ships that had been hastily armed with whatever weapons they could find. "Admiral, Incoming transmission from Earth, announced the communications officer. It's Admiral Hayes. Put him through. Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen, looking older than Paul remembered. The stress of organizing the largest military operation in human history was taking its toll. "Paul, how are we looking?" Hayes asked. "Better than I hoped, sir. We've got ships from every fleet, every colony, every corporation. The crews are ready to fight. Good, because our scouts report the Vorthik are moving again. They're heading for the Centauri system. 20 million people, Paul." Paul felt his heart skip a beat. Centauri was one of humanity's oldest colonies, home to some of the first families to leave Earth. If it fell, the psychological impact would be devastating. "How much time do we have?" Paul asked. 4 days, maybe less. The Vorthik are moving faster than before. Paul looked out at his fleet. 1,800 ships against 300, but the alien vessels were larger and more advanced. In a straight fight, humanity would lose. But Paul had no intention of fighting fair. "We'll be ready, sir," he said. "I know you will." "Paul, I want you to know that every person on Earth is counting on you. The President has authorized you to use any means necessary to stop these things." Paul understood. Any means necessary, even if it meant sacrificing his entire fleet. "Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down." The transmission ended, and Paul turned to his staff. Captain Tony Martinez, his tactical officer, was studying the enemy positions. Commander Frank Adams, the fleet chaplain, was preparing for the service that would bless the fleet before battle. "Tony, what's our best approach?" Paul asked. "The Vorthik expect us to fight like humans have always fought, sir. Formation battles, heavy ships against heavy ships. But we can't win that way. What do you suggest? We use our advantages. Speed, maneuverability, and the fact that we're fighting for our homes. The Vorthik see us as prey, not as warriors. Let's show them how wrong they are." Paul nodded. "Begin final preparations. All ships are to complete their battle checks within 6 hours. Then we move out." As his staff dispersed to carry out their orders, Paul remained on the bridge, watching. His fleet. The ships were beautiful in their own way, examples of human engineering and determination. But more than that, they represented something the aliens couldn't understand. Hope. Commander Adams approached him. "Admiral, would you like to address the fleet before we depart?" Paul thought about it. Thousands of people were about to risk their lives in a battle they might not survive. They deserved to hear from their commander. "Yes, Commander." "Open a channel to all ships." The communications officer nodded. "All ships are listening, Admiral." Paul took a deep breath. "This is Fleet Admiral Wright to all ships of the War Armada. In a few hours, we will depart for the Centauri system. We go to face an enemy that has destroyed entire civilizations, an enemy that believes humanity is weak and helpless. They're wrong. We are not weak. We are not helpless. We are human beings, and we do not abandon our own. The colonists at New Haven died, calling for help. The people of Centauri are counting on us. We will not let them down. I won't lie to you. The odds are against us. The enemy has more ships, bigger weapons, and technology we barely understand. But they don't have what we have. The knowledge that we're fighting for our families, our homes, our future. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. Today, we prove that no alien force, no matter how powerful, can destroy the human spirit. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every human child who will ever look up at the stars and dream of the future. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. We're going to war." The fleet began to move as one, 1,800 ships turning toward their destination. The largest military force in human history was heading into battle, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire species. Paul watched them go, feeling the weight of command on his shoulders. In a few days, many of these ships would be gone, their crews lost in the dark between the stars. But they would not die in vain. They would die fighting, and their sacrifice would save millions of lives. The war Armada was ready. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like a swarm of angry wasps. Admiral Paul Wright watched from the bridge of the UHS Vengeance as his 1,800 ships spread out in perfect formation. The Vorthok had been expecting an easy victory over a helpless human colony. Instead, they were about to face the fury of an entire species. Enemy fleet bearing 27 Mark IV, reported the tactical officer. 237 ships, sir. They're moving to intercept. Paul studied the display. The alien ships looked like nightmares, made real, dark organic shapes that seemed to writhe and pulse with their own life. They were huge, some of them twice the size of human dreadnoughts, and they moved with an unsettling fluid grace. All ships? This is Admiral Wright, he said over the fleetcom. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. First wave, advance and engage. Second wave, prepare for planetary assault. Third wave, hold position and watch for enemy reinforcements. The first wave consisted of the heavy ships, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and heavy cruisers. They accelerated toward the Vorthok fleet, their weapons charging and their crews ready for battle. Leading them was Captain Tony Martinez in the UHS Thunderbolt, a veteran destroyer captain who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment. Thunderbolt to all ships. Tony's voice crackled over the comm. Let's show these things what human steel can do. All weapons, fire at will. The space between the fleets erupted in light and energy. Human railguns hurled projectiles at incredible speeds while plasma cannons sent streams of superheated gas toward the alien ships. The Vorthok responded with their own weapons, green energy beams that seemed to eat through armor and hull plating. The first human ship to die was the cruiser UHS Dallas. A Vorthok beam weapon struck her amidships, and she simply disintegrated, her crew of 400 vanishing in an instant. But the humans didn't falter. They kept coming, kept firing, kept fighting. Second wave, begin planetary assault, Paul ordered. Captain Bennett, take your ships down to the surface. Find our people. Captain Roy Bennett commanded the assault group, a mixed force of Marines, converted cargo ships, and anything else that could carry troops. His ships broke away from the main battle and dove toward the planet below, dodging alien fire and the wreckage of destroyed vessels. Roy here, Bennett's voice came through the comm. We're taking heavy fire, but we're getting through. Should reach the surface in 10 minutes. Paul watched the tactical display as the battle unfolded. The human ships were smaller and faster than the Vorthok vessels, but the aliens had powerful weapons and thick armor. For every alien ship destroyed, humanity lost 2 or 3 of their own. Admiral, we're getting reports from the planet, called out the communications officer. The colonists are alive. They're being held in processing facilities near the main settlement. Paul felt a surge of hope. The people of New Haven were still alive, still fighting. That meant this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about rescue. Captain Hayes, take your stealth ships and support the ground assault, Paul ordered. We need intelligence on those facilities. Captain Julie Hayes commanded the reconnaissance squadron, ships so advanced they could slip past enemy sensors, undetected. She had been gathering intelligence on the Vorthok for weeks, learning their weaknesses and studying their tactics. Copy that, Admiral, Julie replied. We're moving to support the ground teams. On the planet's surface, the battle was fierce and brutal. The Vorthik had turned the human colony into a fortress, with alien weapons and biomechanical defenses everywhere. Captain Bennett's Marines fought building by building, corridor by corridor, looking for their people. Bennett to Admiral Wright. Roy's voice came through heavy with static. "We've found them, sir. The processing facilities are huge, and there are thousands of people inside. But Admiral, what they're doing to them, ... it's horrible." Paul closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't want to know what the aliens were doing to human prisoners, but he had to ask, "How many survivors, Captain?" "At least 30,000, sir. They're weak, but they're alive. And, sir, they've been fighting back. There's an organized resistance down here, led by the colony administrator and the chief engineer." Paul felt pride surge through him. Even in the darkest circumstances, humans refused to give up. They fought back, they resisted, they survived. "Get them out of there, Captain. All of them." "Yes, sir. We're moving now." The space battle was reaching its climax. The human fleet had lost over 300 ships, but they had destroyed almost half the Vorthik fleet. The aliens were starting to regroup, their remaining ships forming a defensive formation around their command vessel. "Admiral, we're getting strange readings from the enemy flagship," reported the sensor officer. "It's like they're all connected." Somehow, Paul studied the data. The Vorthik ships were moving in perfect coordination, as if they shared a single mind. If that was true, then their command ship was more than just a headquarters. It was the brain of their entire fleet. "Captain Hayes, are you in position?" Paul asked. "Yes, sir. We're right next to their command ship. It's huge, Admiral. Over 3 kilometers long. Can you get inside?" "We're trying, sir." "These ships are strange. They're not just organic. They're alive. But I think we found a weakness." Paul held his breath. "A weakness in the enemy command ship could turn the entire battle." "There's what looks like a control center near the middle of the ship," Julie continued. "If we can hit it with a precision strike, we might be able to disrupt their coordination." "Do it," Paul ordered. "All ships, prepare for final assault. When the enemy loses coordination, we hit them with everything we have." Julie's stealth ship slipped through the alien defenses like a ghost. Her crew had trained for missions like this, but none of them had ever faced anything like the Vorthik command ship. It was a living nightmare, all tentacles and teeth and pulsing organic corridors. "Hayes to fleet," Julie's voice came through the comm. "We're in position, beginning attack run." Her ship fired everything it had at the alien control center. Missiles, plasma bolts, and kinetic projectiles all struck the same spot, tearing through the biomechanical hull and reaching the delicate systems inside. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Vorthik fleet suddenly lost its coordination, ships colliding with each other and firing at random targets. Some of them even began attacking their own vessels, confused and leaderless. "All ships attack now," Paul shouted. "Hit them while they're confused." The human fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing. The disorganized Vorthik ships were easy targets, and human crews made the most of their opportunity. Ship after ship was destroyed, the alien fleet falling apart like a house of cards. "Bennett to Admiral," Roy's voice came through the comm. "We've got them, sir. All the colonists are out of the facilities and heading for the evacuation ships. They're safe." Paul felt tears in his eyes. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had saved their people and defeated the enemy. The colonists of New Haven were going home. "Admiral, enemy ships are trying to escape," reported the tactical officer. "Should we pursue?" Paul looked at the display. A few dozen Vorthik ships were fleeing the system, their crews probably as confused and terrified as the humans had been just hours ago. "Let them go," he said. "But make sure they know what happened here. Make sure they know that humanity will never surrender, never give up and never abandon our own. The battle was over. The human fleet had won, but at a terrible cost. Over 400 ships had been lost, and thousands of brave men and women would never see home again. But they had saved 30,000 lives, and they had sent a message. To the galaxy, humanity was not prey. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Paul stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, watching the rescue ships lift off from the planet below. The colonists were safe, the enemy was defeated, and the galaxy would never again underestimate the human spirit. The War Armada had answered the desperate call for help, and in doing so, had announced humanity's place among the stars. The last Vorthic ship exploded in a brilliant flash of green light, its death scream echoing across the void. Admiral Paul Wright watched from the bridge of the UHS Vengeance as the debris scattered among the stars, the final remains of an alien fleet that had thought humanity was easy prey. "All enemy vessels destroyed, Admiral," reported the tactical officer. "The system is secure." Paul nodded, but he felt no joy in the victory. Too many good people had died to reach this moment. He looked around the bridge at his crew, seeing the exhaustion in their eyes, the grief for fallen friends, and the relief that they had survived. "Signal all ships," Paul said. "Begin search and rescue operations. I want every survivor found, every crew member accounted for." The space around Kepler 442 was filled with wreckage from both fleets. Human ships floated dark and broken beside the twisted remains of Vorthic vessels. But among the debris, rescue boats were already moving, looking for escape pods and survivors. "Admiral, write to Captain Bennett," Paul said over the comm. "What's the status on the surface?" Roy Bennett's voice came through, tired but triumphant. "All colonists have been evacuated, sir. 32,000 people, including the resistance leaders. They're weak, but they're alive." Paul felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The people of New Haven were safe. The mission that had started with a desperate cry for help was complete. "Outstanding work, Captain. How are they holding up?" "Better than expected, sir. These people have been through hell, but they never gave up. Colony Administrator Jake Morrison and Chief Engineer Lisa Campbell organized a resistance network that kept them alive and fighting. They're heroes, all of them." Paul smiled for the first time in days. Even in the darkest circumstances, humans found a way to fight back. It was what made them special, what made them dangerous to enemies who thought they were weak. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Earth," announced the communications officer. "It's Admiral Hayes. Put him through." Admiral Hayes appeared on the main screen, and Paul was shocked to see tears in the older man's eyes. Behind him, Paul could see the command center on Luna Station, filled with people cheering and celebrating. "Paul, you did it," Hayes said. "You actually did it. The whole galaxy is talking about what happened at Kepler 442. The Vorthic fleet is destroyed, and word is spreading fast." "What do you mean, sir?" "Other species are reaching out to us. Races that have been hiding from the Vorthic for centuries. They want to know how we did it, how we defeated the undefeatable. Paul, you've changed everything." Paul looked out at his battered fleet. They had started with 1,800 ships and lost over 400. Thousands of crew members had died in the battle. Their names would be remembered forever. But they had won something more than just a victory. They had won respect. "What about the Vorthic survivors?" Paul asked. "The ships that escaped? Our scouts are tracking them. They're fleeing to the outer rim, telling everyone they meet about the humans who fought back. Some alien species are calling us the Star Warriors now." Paul almost laughed. Star Warriors. A year ago, humanity had been just another minor species, struggling to survive in a dangerous galaxy. Now they were legendary. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the medical ships," said the communications officer. "The colonists are in bad shape, but they're going to make it. The doctors say they should make full recoveries." Paul nodded. That was what mattered most. The people they had come to save were going home. "Sir, there's something else," the officer continued. "The colonists are asking to speak with you. They want to thank the fleet personally." Paul thought about it. These people had been through unimaginable suffering, and they wanted to thank him. He was the one who should be thanking them for their courage. Put them through. The screen changed to show a crowded medical bay. The colonists looked thin and pale, but their eyes burned with determination. At the front of the group stood Jake Morrison, the colony administrator, who had sent the desperate message that started it all. "Admiral Wright," Jake said, his voice hoarse but strong, "I don't know how to thank you. When we sent that message, we never thought anyone would come. We thought we were going to die alone, forgotten." "You're not forgotten," Paul said. "You're heroes, all of you. You held on when everything seemed hopeless. You kept fighting when the odds were impossible. You're what makes humanity great." Lisa Campbell stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Admiral, they took our children first. We thought we'd never see them again, but you brought them back. You brought them all back." Paul felt his throat tighten. He had children of his own back on Earth, and he couldn't imagine what these people had endured. "We don't leave our people behind," he said simply. "Ever." The colonists began to cheer, their voices echoing through the medical bay. They were weak, hurt, traumatized, but they were alive, and they were going home. "Admiral Hayes to Admiral Wright," came the voice over the comm. "Paul, you need to see this." The screen switched back to the command center on Luna Station. Admiral Hayes was standing in front of a tactical display that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Vorthic positions, but many of them were moving, fleeing toward the outer rim. "The Vorthic are retreating," Hayes said. "All across the galaxy, their fleets are pulling back. They're scared, Paul. For the first time in 1,000 years, they're scared." Paul studied the display. The alien plague that had terrorized countless worlds was running away, running from humanity. "What about the other species?" Paul asked. "The ones you said were contacting us?" "The response has been incredible. The Altarian survivors want to join our fleet. The Centauri Defense Force is offering to share their technology. Even the traders are giving us information for free. Everyone wants to be allied with the species that defeated the Vorthic." Paul felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. This wasn't just about saving one colony anymore. Humanity had become the leader of a galactic alliance against the alien plague. "Admiral, incoming priority message," called out the communications. "Officer, it's from the President of Earth." The screen changed to show President Martinez, a woman Paul had met only once before. She looked tired but proud, and behind her he could see the flags of every human colony and settlement. "Admiral Wright, on behalf of all humanity, I want to thank you and your fleet for what you've accomplished. The colonists of New Haven are safe. The Vorthic threat has been neutralized, and humanity has taken its place as a major power in the galaxy." Paul nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Madam President. But we couldn't have done it without the courage of people like Jake Morrison and Lisa Campbell. They never gave up, even when everything seemed lost. Which is why," the President continued, "I'm announcing the formation of the Terran Federation Navy. Admiral Wright, you're being promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of our new Galactic Defense Force." Paul felt his heart skip. The war Armada was becoming permanent, a shield to protect not just humanity, but all the species that had suffered under Vorthic rule. "I'm honored, Madam President. We won't let you down." "I know you won't. The galaxy is watching us now, Admiral. We have a responsibility to use our power wisely. The transmission ended, and Paul looked out at his fleet. The ships were battered and scarred, but they were still flying. Their crews were exhausted, but they were still fighting. This was what humanity was capable of when they stood together. "All ships, this is Fleet Admiral Wright," he said over the fleet comm. "Today we saved 30,000 lives and defeated an enemy that thought we were weak. But this is just the beginning. We're going home to refit, to rebuild, and to prepare for whatever comes next." He paused, looking out at the stars. "The galaxy knows about us now. They know that humanity doesn't abandon its people, doesn't surrender to bullies, and doesn't back down from a fight. We've become something new today, something powerful. We're the guardians of the innocent, the defenders of the weak, and the hope of the oppressed." The fleet began to move, forming up for the journey home. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, Paul thought about the desperate message that had started it all. Jake Morrison's call for help had summoned more than just a rescue fleet. It had awakened the warrior spirit that would carry humanity to greatness among the stars. The war Armada was going home, but they would be back. Whenever tyranny threatened the innocent, whenever bullies preyed on the weak, whenever anyone sent out a desperate call for help, humanity would answer. They were the Star Warriors now, and the galaxy would never be the same dot in the years that followed. The Terran Federation Navy became the most respected military force in known space. They protected trade routes, defended helpless worlds, and carried the banner of freedom to every corner of the galaxy. The desperate SOS from New Haven had not just saved one colony. It had changed the course of galactic history. And in the quiet moments between battles, when the ships were dark and the crews were resting, they would remember the courage of the colonists who had refused to surrender, the sacrifice of the crews who had died fighting, and the moment when humanity had proven that no force in the universe could break the human spirit. The stars belonged to humanity now, and they would never let them go.